If you're anything like me with all the Cloudflare stuff going on at the moment, every now and then I go to type something in a search bar and it just gives me an unhappy face. So that's a bit of the theme of this week, to be honest. But you're here, you made it.
We're all here. And hi, everyone. If you haven't done the welcome already, it's our final hug of the year. I can't believe it. What a year it's been, Jem.
Yeah, I know. I haven't quite come to terms with the fact that Christmas is 2 weeks away yet. I'm not ready. I'm not sure how that happened.
Well, let's kick off. So I'm
Yes.
Amy. I'm head of revenue here at Baby Press, and excited to be hosting this session all about 2026 adoption and building a roadmap for next year. In our previous sessions, we've looked at specific toolkits and post inbound updates, but today we're looking forward to next year. We know that many organizations have successfully implemented HubSpot, but moving beyond that basic setup into a true company-wide utilization is the real challenge for a lot of people. So today we thought we'd do a practical session designed to help you overcome sort of that plateaued user engagement and plan for next year's future growth. So we're going to discuss how to integrate next generation tools and strategies as well. To guide us through this all, we are joined by Jem, who specializes in helping businesses achieve market dominance through connected CRM systems. So, Jem, introduce you first of all. As the head of our expert practices team, you've got an amazing reputation for helping companies review their existing portals to find gaps and onboarding new departments as well. I think everybody holds you in very high esteem, and one recent client described you as a blessing. So we're definitely in safe hands with you today.
Thank you. People generally try to go for the gem comment, but I've not that I've heard that 30 times before. but no, that's always nice to hear. Nice feedback.
Before we dive in, just a bit of housekeeping. Both myself and Tanya will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A throughout this session. So please feel free to drop any questions or comments as well. But if you do have a specific question, please pop it in the Q&A so we don't miss it. Okay, so to get started, I think we'll try an icebreaker. I'd love to hear from you in the chat what you think about your 2026 planning. What's the one word that comes to mind? Is it, for example, excited or overwhelmed or AI focus? We'd love to know. Jem, what would you stick in there?
I'm having a lot of discussions about this with clients at the moment, and I think overwhelmed is a word that is coming out a lot, often in conjunction with AI focus. Yes. The two go very much hand in hand. Like, there's been so much that has come out from HubSpot since inbound in September, and actually a lot of our webinars and sessions that we've been doing since then have been focused on like helping people to just translate that into, okay, but what does that mean for my portal? Because actually that is a lot. And so going into 2026, the big themes I'm seeing are, okay, we need the teams to be using AI, but actually when you go a bit deeper, firstly, the jump to agents feels quite big. So people are having to bridge that gap with smaller steps, so that there's that planning. And then equally, they suddenly realize that they don't have the data required for the AI to work well. So actually that links them back to data hygiene. You've got adoption in there, because if your teams aren't logging emails and logging calls, then you miss out on so much. So yeah, it sort of opens a can of worms, this AI proliferation in HubSpot. And so, yeah, that's a big theme that I'm seeing coming up for a lot of teams.
Oh yeah, I think it's kind of where to start. So let's dive into the first kind of theme we prep, which is the shift from setup to strategy. Now, for those who have joined us who feel that their portal is technically working fine, what is the difference in your view between a portal that's just set up versus one that has actually achieved that deeper adoption and platform ownership?
I was actually looking at talking about this yesterday. I think whenever there's an implementation of HubSpot, there's this big focus around getting it built, getting all the data in there, and then it being done. And actually, the real success of getting that embedded often comes after, because often you've got that big launch and you can say,
excited, right? And everybody's
yeah,
behind it, and it's got
and
high priority in the company, that visibility.
and you can say technically, yes, we've done it, we've achieved it, it's in. But actually, a few months later, you look at some of the indicators and maybe not everyone's using it, or it's not quite there. And I think one of the big things there that we're seeing is that the theme that often comes after implementation is adoption, hence the reason for this hug and this session. But I think one of the big things there is actually taking it from being a thing the business has to being embedded day to day, and not just like the teams, so sales, service, lesser so marketing, but some of these other teams not seeing it as just a piece of admin they have to complete or a box they have to tick, but actually something that genuinely supports them and that they see value in themselves. Like, because actually, if you're just being told to do something because it ticks a box, because it fills out a report, what's in it for me? And I think that's the big thing, is when it's truly embedded in the team, that's when you can truly say that it's working well.
Yeah. And I think only when that happens are people who then join the business after the implementation, being trained by people who are there now. If they are truly bought in, know what it's doing for them, they will train people. Because I think often that's another time where it kind of almost gets sort of diluted, as if, you know, when somebody new joins the business doesn't then buy into it, then really.
Yeah, it's interesting when you see some clients who the users are actually the new people, and the people who've been there a while plateau a bit and fall off, because actually the new people didn't know anything different. So they're using it, they're flying with the system, and the people who are still stuck in their habits are a little bit lagging sometimes.
Well, I mean, as you say, we often see that user engagement sort of plateau after that initial excitement, after the launch, you know, wears off. So when, in your experience of working with clients, what are the kind of early warning signs that maybe engagement has stalled a bit?
Yeah, I think, I mean, one of our favorite topics at BabelQuest to talk about is an adoption dashboard, right? So this is people often think of reporting as the end state, but actually getting those early warning signs earlier and flagging, setting off little sirens everywhere saying this isn't happening, the activity levels are dropping, something's not right. The earlier you do that, the better. So I'm going to share my screen actually and show you an idea of an adoption dashboard. But the idea behind this is that actually having something in your portal that you're monitoring really helps you to keep on top of even those little blips and those little small signs that something's not working, and that can help you to then run enablement sessions, training, anything to pick it back up again before it becomes a problem, because it's all about setting habits that you're going to keep going with. So let me just...
And it's often when we recommend and build for our clients, isn't it, Jem, when we are working with them on implementation.
Yeah. This is one of the key dashboards that we find, even if it's not in implementation, just after, like just at that point where it's then being used. So let me just share this. And this is one of those ones where this is our test portal, but this is an idea of the sorts of things you can do. This usually would get tailored per team, because there are usually different things you would want to keep an eye on, the different complexities and nuances within teams. But an idea of what you can do with an adoption dashboard, looking at kind of who's disconnected their email account. So in this one, in a test portal, 18 people haven't got their calendar or their email connected, which would certainly be a red flag for me, because if I wanted them to be having that complete data, that needs to be connected.
And sometimes that's not necessarily the fault of the user. They haven't done it on purpose. Sometimes it's an IT setting that just means they have to log back in, and it's just being able to then sort of keep on top of that and then know who to reach out to help them.
Yeah, it literally happened to me today, where it kicked me out of the email connection and I had to reset it. So yeah, just keeping an eye on that. The next one down would be looking at like seats. Who has seats? has anyone been deactivated and still has a seat? You could also look at other tracking methods there, but essentially, are you using your seats well? That's another one to look at. Then going into, you can actually add user properties. And I'd really recommend looking at this. If you've got a larger portal, you can actually have a property that looks at adoption status and flag issues if people aren't doing certain things. You could set this based on a range of different metrics that maybe a workflow powers the setting of this adoption status or something else. But perhaps if they haven't logged in for 6 months, they haven't connected their email, but they've got a sales seat, you flag that, and then that would be able to you could be able to take action on that. Some of the other bits on here, have they created a scheduling page? Can look at the breakdown of a team. So actually here, 20 users aren't in a team. That could be impacting visibility, data security, that kind of thing as well. So that can flag that. Another area here is looking at training pathways and skills and talents. So this plays a little bit into Service Hub, where you can route based on knowledge. So who's best to answer a ticket, do that. But actually, it's also just looking at, okay, to build that knowledge and build that adoption, what do we need to be doing? And then activity metrics is the big one, really. So looking at deals created, looking at activity levels. So looking at how many emails have been sent. So Holly has been doing nothing this month. No matters of the fact that she's on maternity leave or anything like that, and this is a test portal, but as opposed to Chris, who's been doing lots of stuff in our test portal. So it's just flagging those sorts of things. Again, looking at tasks completed. For an adoption dashboard, I've often built this as a chart over time for clients as well, so they can actually see the ebb and flow of those activities and how they go up and down. It might be that you have quiet periods throughout the year, and you can take that into account. And then lastly, another really nice one here is to have these extra fields where you can actually visualize how people are doing and any certifications they need to be doing. And then looking at the other side is data completeness to some extent. So is there anyone with no next activity close date in the past? This is flagging adoption in a different way. It's looking at what are they not doing. So you can highlight that. And then, user feedback. So actually emailing a regular monthly survey out to your team to look at how they're finding HubSpot and feeding that in as well. So an adoption dashboard can be a really good way of just having those pulse points that you can be checking how things are going.
Yeah, because once you start measuring it, you can see it. We've got a couple of questions in the chat. Both Janelle and Karina have asked about issues without the Outlook sales extension tool constantly turning off. We have come across this problem before, haven't we, Jem?
Yeah, I literally had a client ask me about this a couple of days ago. I would say there's a few reasons why this might happen. Firstly, ask your IT team, because the IT team can, particularly with Outlook, there are things you can do. Like they can set security settings with regard to apps and things like that. So if they've got a setting which does expire it, then that's in there. Another thing would be to flag it with HubSpot. I had a client the other day saying it logs them out every day, which you absolutely shouldn't be doing. Yeah. So if it's not your IT team, then raise it as a support ticket with HubSpot. They can look at the reasons in there as well.
Yeah. The other question, also from Karina, thank you for questions, Karina. How do you remove sequence emails from the email count?
That's a good question. There should be types in there. You mean in the activity?
Yeah, I think in the dashboard.
Let me have a look. One moment. On the fly answer here. Let's figure it out. If I look at filters, in emails. If I look at activity type, emails is just emails sent. It doesn't look like you can. Someone else may disagree with me on this, but no, the different types of activities are, as you say, email sent to a contact. The route through which that's sent isn't specified, but I'd say my question back to you would be, why would you want to separate them? Because effectively they still are emails to people. So I guess that would be my question. Why would you want to remove it from an email account?
But we'll have a play, should we, afterwards, and see if we can figure out or kind of work out something like that. Maybe we can use something around that. Because some people are a bit click happy. Understood. Especially when they start using a prospecting agent. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move to planning for 2026. And I think if we want, the CRM to be the central to a company, it requires a roadmap. So when building a roadmap for next year, how do you think we could advise our audience to ensure that the platform stays aligned with business goals that might change, so it doesn't just become a sort of static database?
Yeah. So something I'd really recommend and works really well, particularly where you've got a lot of people involved. So where these are slightly larger businesses where lots of stakeholders are involved in HubSpot and maybe you're using more than one hub, I would really advise a strategy day. So being able to get everyone ideally in person, because there's a different dynamic. I don't know if you agree, Amy, with in person is like you can have the side conversations going on, and you can I love sitting and just observing all the different conversations that go on, and you pick up on so much more than you would if everyone was on Zoom.
Yeah, and everybody's engaged because I'm sure there are people on this call as well, like checking the emails and whatever. But and some people won't naturally want to contribute, and I think if you are in person, so yeah, that's a great tip.
Yeah, but so getting everyone around a room, around a table, and firstly doing a bit of a retrospective of the year, and looking at the goal, looking at the data and the portal. So doing a bit of a review prior to the session and looking at, okay, how did this year go? And then what do we need to achieve next year? One thing that I always think is really important, because it can change year to year, is what is your actual mission with HubSpot? What are you trying to achieve? Because yes, you're, as a business, you might be trying to increase revenue, etc. But what is the purpose of HubSpot this year? In which case, if it is driving new business, or if it is engaging existing clients and driving upsells, it's actually getting everyone around the table agreed in what's the point. And if that can involve higher up stakeholders in the business, that can then be fed down into everyone else. So actually aligning on that and having a clear mission, then going into a retrospective of the year, and then looking ahead and going, okay, this is where we are right now, this is where we need to get to. That then sort of tees you up for putting in the middle bit, which is, okay, what do we do for a roadmap between now and then?
Yeah. Well, one of the things we promised our attendees was a mini roadmap framework. So could you talk us through the first critical step of an admin should take, ideally this week, to start building that strategy for next year?
Yeah, I think as I kind of said, having that core mission and strategy for the year is the most important starting point. What you'll find then is part of it is just pulling all the ideas out of everyone, and coming up with the key themes that are the priority for this year. So perhaps like increasing that revenue is still the driving force. In which case, then having looked at the portal data, you're actually going, okay, well, adoption's down, so we need to have an adoption thread. We need to actually fix our data, because we don't trust it. So actually we could be hitting our goal, but we have no idea if we are. And then maybe you also want to put some effort into lead gen or something. There's a specific focus. So you can pull out these key threads that are needed there. Then I would look at, with HubSpot, I really wouldn't recommend putting a year roadmap in, because things change so much in both business and economic climate and everything, but equally in the product in HubSpot. So certainly putting together quarter to half year of roadmap plan in there. So looking at those individual threads, what are those milestones you need to hit within the 6 months to say you've been successful? So say it's adoption. Do you want to increase the number of activities per staff member, or do you want to increase your NPS score amongst team members? In which case, then plan out that activity across that quarter and then half year. I think a big thing there is actually to have quarterly check-ins as well. So never looking too far ahead, and always being ready to flex your roadmap as needed as well. So I think we're really looking at that far out vision with your mission for the year, then bringing it into a kind of closer horizon by looking at, okay, what are we achieving in the next 6 months? And let's review it in 3 months to make sure we're on track. And then having those key metrics to review along the way to make sure you're kind of staying accountable. One of the big things that I come across that's a problem for businesses is there is so much possibility with HubSpot that you could basically go, oh, we're just going to do HubSpot really well. And you won't get anywhere because you could do bits and pieces, but the cumulative effort doesn't get there. You need to pull yourselves around that common goal and make a plan to get there. So physically road mapping it out is my big thing.
Yeah, and having somebody accountable for it as well. We can't not mention AI. So I think over the past year, when we've spoken to clients and prospects, that there is often a feeling of being overwhelmed just because everything's moving so fast. And quite often some companies we speak to, the leadership doesn't have a clear vision for how AI is being used. So there are lots of people using it in silos and different ways. How would you advise teams to plan out a roadmap that includes AI adoption without necessarily getting distracted by shiny new things?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. And I think it's interesting when you say getting distracted by shiny new things. I think people get overwhelmed by shiny new AI things because it seems so big and such a big change. But I'd say the first things first is get your basics sorted. So it's an age-old analogy, really, but get your foundations in before you build the house. It seems a really simple thing to say, but actually people immediately go, oh, I want to do customer agent, or I need to do prospecting agent. But actually you need to look at, okay, well, are the team logging their activities to be able to get the data to power all of this, to get the insights? For example, if they're logging all their activity, you then have that information to feed the customer agent to know what people are going to ask and to make those answers accurate. Or for prospecting, is the data accurate? As in, like, are you actually getting the key points in there? Is your segmentation on point? All of this kind of stuff. And I think often if that's not in place, that's why the AI piece seems so overwhelming, because you're trying to run before you can walk, basically. And equally with looking at actual implementation of AI, start by using things like Breeze Assistant and actually looking at summaries and things like that, because that's something that's in your portal right now that can tap into existing data, doesn't require any change. And dipping your toe in that can actually just take away some of that fear around what's next. And it's really the key to getting that kind of hybrid team working, because you're seeing the value before making a big step.
Yeah, I think it is definitely sort of breaking it down. Choose a couple of projects that or a couple of AI projects that you think you might be able to see value in, test them, and iterate on that, rather than just thinking, oh, it's just so many things. Just pick some and get started, I think.
Yeah.
Which tools AI tools do you think are most effective at driving efficiency at the moment in HubSpot?
I think the first, one that's been there for a while is summaries. So either by going into Breeze Assistant, looking at prompts and summarizing for a meeting with contacts or companies, that's brilliant for getting, especially if you've got a lot of users from different departments using HubSpot, you can get a view across everyone very quickly. But actually, one of my favorite things that I keep showing people is some of the betas coming out using AI are very exciting, particularly for sales teams. And so I'm actually going to dive in and show you my current favorite, which is there's a lot of leaps and bounds being made with the meetings tools at the moment.
I love, this has been a game changer for sales. And that's an overused phrase, I know.
But it is.
It really is.
Yeah. So this is a tricky one to show you, because I have to show you real data and without showing you client data, but I've set it up. I think it's going to work. So within the sales workspace, you obviously have your schedule, and you would be able to see all your upcoming meetings. The one thing they've added now is that if you have a meeting that has happened, then it will turn orange, basically. And if we look at this key here, this is highlighting as well. It pulls in your calendar events as well as HubSpot meetings and tasks. But if the meeting has happened, it will turn orange and you will be able to click onto it, which then opens up this new area. And this is showing a past session we ran, so this isn't showing you any data, but what I'm enjoying here is that the ability to then transcribe the call with the recording. It will list out the next step. So all of us are getting used to note takers, but being able to list that out and adding meeting notes as well from that. So this post meeting, absolutely brilliant for summarizing that. And I love that this is directly in HubSpot. What I'm actually doing with this as well, and this isn't specific to Success Workspace, Sales Workspace, is if you actually go into calls, when you have logged a call, by clicking on it, you can access this same area. And then actually beneath meeting notes, you can tag the person. So I was having calls with clients earlier this morning. After each one, I could tag a colleague and say, oh, can you follow up with this person? Or next time you speak to them, can you give them XYZ? Just means that I don't have to do anything extra. I didn't have to copy and paste anything. It was just in HubSpot already, and it had summarized it for me. The next bit that is the most exciting thing, I think, is the info and insight.
Well, before you move on, if you go back to the recording transcript, in the transcript, what we use it a lot for is there is actually a search function in the transcript as well. So if you want to double check and see if maybe there was mention of a decision by a certain date, you can quickly look through and search as well. And it'll jump to that place where you can then just immediately. So again, really simple and not rocket science, but it's so useful.
And actually, to that point, Amy, thanks for reminding me. If you're using Breeze Assistant, it has access to all of this. So again, going all those steps back, if your team are logging their meetings and they've enabled this, then it will take the transcript, it will do the next steps and meeting notes, and you can actually call on those items within Assistant. So one story I say a lot is that for quite a few clients, I've done analysis through Breeze Assistant, which would say, look at all my sales calls for the last 30 days, review the next steps and meeting notes, and pull out any key themes that have been discussed in those meetings. So it's really taking that meeting and then analyzing it and giving insights that can really take it forward. And that's simply through making sure you've got stuff logged, and turning that AI on. It instantly helps. So yeah, definitely. You've also got your standards in here, like being able to actually flag, okay, the meeting was a no-show, it cancelled, which helps reporting, and then being able to select your meeting type in there. And obviously you can amend these options as to exactly what you want to see. Anything more on that, Amy, before I jump into this one? So info and insights, this is then actually pre-meeting and also during. You can go in and where I said the meeting will go orange when it's happened, you can access this page even before the meeting's happened, but it will give you the details of the description of when it is, and then you can actually add your own internal notes that will save, and it will then pull from across the portal any associated deals, recent activity, web page visits, and then it will also summarize pain points and tips across the portal. So if I'm having a check-in with a client doing this, it could kind of say, there's been a lot of email interactions, there may be an issue here, limited calls, etc. So it's actually flagging some of the things you could be addressing with them. So it's just making you more proactive, basically. Goes into that hybrid teams, working closer with AI. We have some questions, I think, Amy, or at least one. Is there a native voice to text option? So no transcript, but ability to record notes while on the go? Yes, definitely. There is. It's a beta at the moment. If you go to product updates, so top right in your portal, if you click there and then you go to product updates, click on the beta tab and search meetings, I think would bring it up. I think I searched meetings the other day, but it's basically in the app you can, or note taker, I think it might be also under note taker, you can now press play in the app to record the meeting and it will pull it in through that. So yes.
And Julia as well, both the functionality you just described, Jem, and the one that you showed us via screen share can both be done with in-person meetings as well as virtual meetings too. Cool. Let's now move on to sort of driving and measuring engagement. So more on the human side of adoption, getting people to actually use tools. You mentioned earlier sort of gamification as a strategy for next year. How can admins use, for example, the adoption dashboard that you showed, or gamification to foster proactive behavior amongst teams?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? As much as we like to think that everyone will just do something because it's their job,
or you tell them to,
just why don't you just do it? Actually, those who are really embracing the tools and using them to the best of their abilities, like that is likely to be powered elsewhere. It takes time to build habits, so it's not something that's just going to happen overnight. Like it takes time to learn these tools, but also to learn why it's important and what value it gives you. So I always think that being able to show people the value will help it stick. And so things like leaderboards. So if you have an adoption dashboard showing kind of activity leaderboards, which are then emailed out to the team on a Friday, can help. Just, I don't know, I'm quite a competitive person. Maybe that's just me, but being able to see what everyone else is doing compared to me. Obviously, sometimes you might have different sales teams for different types of business. So think about splitting that, because, for example, a strategic accounts team are going to have very different activity levels to someone with a lot more volume. So maybe think of splitting that. Then other things, so incentives, leading to prizes or recognition, Slack shout out. So I think thinking of, at this point, look at HubSpot as an enabler for things beyond the actual work you're trying to do. So for example, you can through automation look at, okay, have people hit their goal with activity levels, send a message to Slack saying, well done, you've hit it. Or I've also seen really cool things around like streaks. So okay, you've logged activity 4 days in a row, great job, that kind of thing. I think it just sometimes, I imagine, I'm not a salesperson, but Amy, I imagine like churning through the activity that you have to do the activity to get to the good stuff the other side, but it can be quite demoralizing trying to keep going. And actually having a little kickback from HubSpot being like, great, you're doing it, you're getting there, you'll find something soon. I think that's a nice way of adding a bit of fun.
It is gamification. And I like your approach, Jem, very much carrot. However, I can see Chris has joined us on the call, was causing trouble earlier, but he has a don't be on it dashboard. So he's very much the stick.
There's the flip side,
which is, it just basically is a dashboard of shame, isn't it, Jem?
I don't know. It's the dashboard of shame, but also it's a motivator. It is a form of hidden gamification, because I was saying to a sales leader the other day, like she said, but people turn up to the meeting and they've never filled in their next activity. I'm like, email it to them the day before and say that you're not going to ask them to tell their next activity. It's just going to be shown. And if they haven't filled it out before, it's going to be really obvious that they've not done it in front of all the sales leaders in the call. And so now they're emailing it out the night before to the sales team, who know the next morning it's going to be front and center in front of everyone. So you will make sure you do your activity, basically. But so it's a form of gamification, but with a bit of a shove behind it, I guess.
So I think when we advertised this session, we talked about new metrics. So rather than just like login rates and that kind of thing, what metrics do you think we should be looking at next year to measure adoption?
It's my favorite word of the year, they always do a word of the year, don't they? I wonder what
Yeah,
it will be this year. But unstructured data is definitely the HubSpot word of the year. Maybe HubSpot should do that as well. And so being able to harness AI and fully use your data, it's not just about adding your data points anymore. You need to be making sure that unstructured data is there and you're enabling it. So making sure your calls, meetings, emails, notes are all logged easily. The amount of times I've had discussions with people where they're like, oh, well, these types of emails can go in, but these types can't. And everyone has to tick the box every single time you send an email. It's just not going to happen. And so I think making sure that it's easy is good. And I think this unlocks a lot of insight. So being able to then track those and then reward regular activity logging. So actually rewarding the enablement of unstructured data is going to help you win, because that's going to get you the best AI activity,
and
basically.
It's data it's not been actionable before. So
Yeah.
there's so much, I think, to win from utilizing that data. So as you say, if we're tracking it, we can action it, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's been an undervalued metric. I mean, just to some extent, people have measured, okay, how many calls have you had? But it's not even about having the call, it's having the transcript and the feedback from the call that can then get you en masse this information that previously we didn't tap into it because it was just far too much effort. Like, I don't want to go through 30 transcripts a week to check what the current themes are. And AI can now do it in seconds to look across a whole sales team's calls for a whole week and give you themes. So there's now a reason to do it. So yeah, I think it's an interesting new metric.
Yeah, I think and you can use it to make life easier as well. So one of the great things you can do with that unstructured data from a sales perspective is use it to create deal win and loss reasons. So without forcing the rep or the salesperson to actually then choose probably just the first one on the list, drop down list, because it's easier to actually fill that out automatically as well. So anything you can do will just get people to buy in the system, right?
Definitely. Janelle's just asked a question. What's your approach around in-person meetings? I love an in-person meeting.
Yeah.
They always make me feel great. But with unstructured data around that, I think where you can, adding those notes. Often I'm often joining calls where we're in a meeting room where the meeting is still recorded, because actually you can have the in-person element and add your notes, your physical notes, which you can get, but actually then having the meeting system record the call still, or using the app to record that, I think it means you can be more present in the moment without having to take loads of notes.
An example, we ourselves, you and I, Jem, went and did a strategy day with a client, was it a month or so ago now, but we set up the meeting recording to be obviously associated with the contacts who were in the room and everything, but that allowed us to just focus and give our ideas rather than trying to capture, notes. And we knew, we were confident that afterwards we'd be able to wrap up and summarize, etc., because we had those recordings.
Yeah, so Janelle's saying in a B2B setting, a lot of sales teams are meeting customers over lunch, having a hard time getting them to see the value and adding the meeting notes. I think to some extent, proof is in the pudding to some extent, that where you've got those themes, you could look at automation. Could they even fill out a couple of bullet points of kind of the key takeaways from that session? I think anything will help. And now that you've got the ability to add your own notes, trying to get them to see the output, I think, is a big thing. So running some analysis through Breeze, looking at key themes that have come up, if they can see that and notice that, oh, actually that meeting I had last week was really useful, but it's missing from that, then saying, well, actually you could add it by adding these bullet points. I think it's showing them rather than telling them. That's often the way to go.
Yeah. And also the benefits. So Janelle, for us, a lot of our time is spent writing proposals and that kind of thing, and it's so much easier if you have call transcripts, etc., because you can add those details that you might not have had. So yeah, I would definitely take Gem's advice on both there. So looking at sort of execution and impact, adoption is often about culture. So how can we use our roadmap to get buy-in from leadership to make sure that they see the CRM as an asset for efficiency through the business rather than just a cost center?
Honestly, I think if you're getting leadership involved once the roadmap's been done, it's almost a bit too late.
Yeah.
Because actually, like, they haven't got any skin in the game. They're not involved. So I'm not saying get your whole board to be in the strategy meeting. They might not want to be, but getting someone in that strategy meeting who's maybe a sponsor from the senior leadership team or a voice from that team in the room, because actually having them go, yes, but that's not actually the goal for the business at the moment, helps to make sure that that roadmap is on point for the business goals. And then that means that leadership will then actually be bought in. Ultimately, particularly with AI, because people are so worried about doing something wrong, or there's a lot of things that, like the dangers of AI, and especially in business and sharing things you shouldn't be, a lot of this needs to be led by leaders. It's not about kind of managing people's use of AI. I think it's leading and being aspirational and showing people the way. And I think if they've been involved in that roadmap and had their opinions involved, then they can help drive that. So I had a chat with Eric on a Behind the Hub that we've run recently, and he spoke about needing the why. So kind of going back to that standard Simon Sinek thing, but what is the why about this? Why are we using AI? Are we using it because it's a buzzword, or are we actually using it because it's adding value to the business and to the individual? And if the leadership team are explaining the why and the roadmap backs that up, then it's a no-brainer that everyone is going to follow it. And so that culture is about coming down from leadership rather than just being something that's functional.
It's so essential. But the best adoption or adopted platforms we've seen are definitely when leadership have been involved and they see the value in it. Absolutely,
definitely.
So if everyone who's joined us today does one thing tomorrow to prepare their company for deeper engagement with their CRM next year, what would you advise that one thing to be?
Say figure out the current status quo. It sounds like a really simple thing. You could say, oh yeah, it's all going well, we're using HubSpot, it's fine. But actually, like, build yourself an adoption dashboard, look at what everyone is actually doing to use it, and then so get that visibility, and then start tracking and start pushing it from there. Get that strategy date in the diary. So yeah, start actually looking under the hood of HubSpot. And whilst you may be thinking, oh yeah, it's all going well, there will be something you could be improving. So build those in ways to build those little windows into that insight, I'd say.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Gem. I think, next year, the strategic focus really has to include adoption for most companies. And I hope that everybody here feels that they're now got some good ideas to create their own roadmap and ready to put in a plan for next year. We've been through quite a bit. And I'm going to pop our LinkedIn profiles in, so please connect with both of us. But does anybody have any questions?
There was one question I just saw go in. Can we get a screenshot of a dashboard like this? I'm actually just going to put a link in there. We have a HubSpot hack. So we put up some hacks around how to do stuff. And Chris, who joined the call, wrote a hack around building an adoption dashboard. And there's actually a video in there that talks through it. So I'd recommend going there as a first port of call.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. As I said, please feel to connect with myself and Gem on LinkedIn. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you all in the new year for more hugs. So Merry Christmas, everyone, and see you all in the new year.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye.